How's it possible that a couple with $1.6 million is unable to retire? That's what I'm about to show you in this video. We always hear about how much you need to have saved for retirement, and the truth is there really isn't a magic number that suddenly makes you able to retire, and this is what so many people get wrong. They think they need $1 million or $2 million or $3 million to be able to retire, but the truth is you can retire happily with less than that if other conditions are met. So in this video, I'm gonna explain why this couple, Jim and Debbie is what we will call them, are not able to retire even though they have $1.6 million saved for retirement. All right, here is Jim and Debbie's situation. They are both 63. They have both worked and they're still working. They make about $280,000 combined. They've got 2 adult kids with a total of $1.6 million in retirement savings. Of that, $1.4 million is tax deferred, $200,000 is in Roth, and they have $30,000 in cash. They live in North Carolina and they want to retire immediately. Also, for Social Security, Jim will have $3,100 at full retirement age, and Debbie will have $2,700 at full retirement age. Right now for expenses, they are spending about $3,500 per month on a mortgage, and that home is worth $1 million, and they owe $600,000 left on it. The interest rate is 4.5%. They also have 2 car payments totaling $950 per month. Cars are worth about $110,000 total, and they owe about $50,000 on them. And finally, they spend about $8,000 a month on everything else of those different debt payments that I just outlined. So their spending every month is fairly high. So let's take a look at their goals. They want to retire right now today at 63 or by the end of 2024. We're in November right now. And so they want to retire by the end of the year, which gives them just a little bit of time to get ready. And we're going to see what their chances look like of a successful retirement. So with that, we can look at their overall snapshot of their chance of success, and it is not looking good off the bat. Over here on the balance sheet, we can see they have about $1.6 million in the invested assets, as well as $1 million in real estate. Now, one note I want to make on that house really quickly is that they purchased it back in 2021 whenever interest rates were really low. And they told me, hey, the reason for this is we have been delaying any sort of purchases for the longest amount of time. We've had 2 kids, we've got them through school, we've paid for all their college, and we've saved, we've done a really good job of saving, but we feel like we've never been able to buy the house we wanted to buy or be able to purchase the cars we really wanted to purchase. So we kind of rewarded ourselves and splurged a little bit there. And now we're thinking that was a big mistake and we're regretting that a bit. So the thing that I see here is a lot of times we save. And I've heard stories of this where you've done everything right, but then you feel like you've never enjoyed life or been able to buy the things you want to buy. So you go and do it all at once. And then you kind of put yourself between a rock and a hard place whenever it comes to retirement, because you want to retire at 63 for various reasons. It's not enjoyable anymore. Perhaps your health is declining and you're like, I just got to get out while I can so I can go do something else. And so that's their case. They purchased these cars and this home back in 2021, so about 2 to 3 years ago. And now they're kind of in a tight spot because of that. And they're wanting to retire immediately at 63 right now today, and it's just not looking good. As you can see down here, you can see their chance of outcomes in terms of their, when they would run out of money is also not very good. I've got them living out to about 92 to 95, but we can see there's a chance they could run out at this particular spending clip. They could run out anywhere around 75 years old. So right now their overall allocation is about 88% stock. And one of the big glaring factors, again, in most people's portfolios as we get close to retirement, is the fact that 87% of their savings is tax deferred. So every dollar that they take out in the future will have to be taxed in some capacity. Okay, so that's their issue, is they've got too much spending. We can see that they've got $256,000 of income coming in 2024, assuming they retire here at the end of the year, and then their income drops off, obviously, but they're spending a bunch of money. They got big tax payments, so they break even right now based on their income, and so that's why they've been able to do what they're doing, is they can meet the debt payments, they can pay the mortgage, they can pay the car payments because they make enough money. They make $280,000 combined, but as soon as they want to retire, that looks really bad because now they've got $191,000 of money that they've got to come up with every single year between expenses for the living expense, which is just month-to-month spending, which probably can be cut back just a little bit, but also the housing expense, which is just your debt payment, but also your debt on the cars. And also now you got additional healthcare costs because they are not yet 65. So they've got to have a little bit higher health insurance premium there, going private insurance. And once they both get to 65, they'll hop on Medicare. And I've got them plugged in right now for a Medigap policy on top of that normal Medicare Part A, B, and they'll also get Part D. So their Medicare and their medical expenses are going to kind of be in this range as they go forward. That's what we're looking at. Let's see here. If we go back, we can see that they've got a lot of money to come up with based on their current expenses. And it's just not something that looks sustainable. And obviously the data, the charts are showing that. So what do we need to do? Well, I think they've got some hard decisions to make. They said, Jacob, we'd love to retire here at the end of 2024. We could keep working. I mean, we have great jobs. We're just worn out. We're tired. So a couple different things that we could look at. Number one is what happens happens if they keep working another couple of years and get to 65? Or what happens if they sell the home, downsize? Can they take some equity out and lower that overall mortgage payment, or maybe eliminate it? What about the cars? Are those necessary? I think you've got a BMW and a GMC Yukon, and they owe a little bit of money on those. We've got some hard decisions. We've got to maybe give up lifestyle, or we've got to continue to work until we get to a spot where we can retire. So let's take a look really fast. If we change a couple items here, yeah, so Jim could even live past 85. I'm just got him plugged in there at 85. So let's bump them both out to 64 in terms of their working. So they're going to work all the way through. So that bumps it up a good bit, right? So one more year into the savings bucket, because right now I've got them saving about, let's see what it was. They are saving 12% both to their 401ks right now, and those are going tax deferred because of their income. And hey, we're paying 22 to 24% there on that. So we might want to just keep doing tax deferred. We can look at their tax situation here in a moment as well. But right now they're saving 10, 12% each, their 401ks, and getting some small matches, about 4% there on those. So if they do that, if they save, and they also have this high income to help pay for their debt every month for their mortgage and their cars, that increases their chances pretty substantially. So that's just one more year of work. Now, what happens if we go one more year? So 2 more years total, and we get to 65, which makes them Medicare eligible, which is really helpful as well. Again, bumps them up to 78%. So that's helpful too. So that's one thing that we could do, is if they wanted to keep everything the same in terms of their spending and their overall debt and not change that, they could simply just work longer. So that's the first option, is they could work longer. Now, if they say, Jacob, hey, we're just not willing to do that. We have to be done here at 63. We're just done. We don't like to do this stuff anymore and we're worn out. So we bump that back. I wonder if they can still retire at 63. But what happens if we lower their spending down to $7,000 per month? And this keeps their debt payments the same. So this is additional spending on top of their debt payments every month. Wonder how much that helps us out. Okay, so that's a good jump. So if we were able to lower our overall expenses every month, which means maybe less vacation, maybe we give up that golf club membership or whatever it might be. Maybe we don't eat at the nice restaurant every single night of the week. Maybe we can cut back a little bit there. Now, if we bump it down to 6,000, it's even better, I'm sure. We'll take a look. Okay, yep. Now we're getting to a good spot here if we did that. So what this shows us, we can keep the house, keep the cars, make the payments, retire at 63, and then lower our lifestyle expenses. So our discretionary spending every single month. Now, if they say, Jacob, hey, we can't give that part up. We feel like that's more important than even the house and the cars. Okay, well, let's take a look at that then. If we leave this the same, put that back there, what we can do is, if we're at 49%, I'm going to go in and change a couple things really fast. Let's go to their loan. Let's go to the mortgage. We're going to bump that down to just say $200,000. And we're going to do that in 2024. Monthly payment, we'll just guess, is about $2,000 a month. The balance, again, $200,000. No early payoff, tied to their primary home, but their primary home now, we're going to bump that down to, let's say they bought, so I've got $600,000 of equity in the $1 million house. Let's say they can buy a $600,000 house to downsize, which means they can move $400,000 of equity over to it, which means they would have a $200,000 loan. So let's call this a $600,000 property. Let's leave the cars the same for now. And let's go back here. So they're still spending $8,000 a month. Their mortgage payment is what's decreased here, 49 to 73. So just downsizing the house, going from $1 million home to a $600,000 home. They're in North Carolina, so that's likely possible to do in their area. And they don't need that as much space anymore. They've got 2 kids that are adults. They're out of the house through college, so they don't need as much space for themselves. That's a real option in my opinion. Even at higher interest rates, that's a real option, which I guess we could go back in and put that interest rate for the loan, make that accurate, right? Rate was 3%. Let's make it 6.5 in today's rates. And again, I don't think that'll make a huge difference here. So not a huge difference. That's something. We could do that. We could look at, relocating, downsizing on the house. That's one option. Another option is if we did that, let's say we did that. Let's say Jim worked one more year and Debbie was like, okay, I'm done. Let's have Jim work one extra year here and stagger this out. So that's a 9% difference. Sell the house, downsize, $600,000 home with a $200,000 mortgage. We look at that on the cash flows here. We can now see, got that there. We needed the proposed plan so we can have Jim's income factored in. Boom. So there's his income until he gets to 64, and then their expenses. So minimal net flows, negative net flows there in 2025, which again pushes them out one more year, gets them one step closer to 65, but then also 67 for their full retirement age on their Social Security. So what this does is that gives them insurance a whole nother year until he reaches 64 and retires. So health insurance is good until that point. So they have about 1.5 years before they have to get on Medicare, which means they only have 1.5 years or so, or 1 year or so until they have to have private insurance, which helps them out a little bit there. So that's a couple different things that we could look at. Is we could downsize the home, keep the cars. Now the cars are just not, they're not valuable. That's the hard part is that they're worth a lot of money, but they're not assets. And so that's the misconception on cars is, oh, I can resell it for something. You're never going to make a ton of money on a car. So 64, let's say the retirement monthly expenses, we can just decrease that, maybe in part because, hey, our mortgage, our insurance on the house, our taxes on the house are now lower because it's a lower valued property, and we can maybe cut some other things out as well. If we did that, boom, now we're getting in a really good range. I like to be 75% or more, obviously the closer to 100%, anywhere from 85 to 95% is a really good range for me. If we're at 100% on this, then that means we're not spending enough money. So we want to spend more money if we're guaranteed to have a successful retirement. I would say anywhere from 85 to 95 is a really, really good range in terms of percentage here. That's just a few different things they've got to consider. I would say it would be great if at least Jim could keep working, or at least Debbie. I wonder if we change this to her instead of him, because he has a slightly higher income. I wonder if that affects this a ton. Not a whole lot. So one of them working is huge. Cut back expenses just a touch in retirement. That would be helpful. And then also we've lowered their overall mortgage expenses as well. Let's see here. Yeah, it was like 40 something thousand bucks. Now it's only 24,000 a year, at $2,000 a month. Their debt payments are still there. So the debt's done by 67, right? Which means Social Security would be flipping on, and then they would have no car debts. They would just have a mortgage, and they'd have their normal living expenses, which we can again cut back just a touch perhaps and spend more whenever markets are doing well and we're making some good money in their accounts. I wonder what their tax situation looks like. Yeah, not a huge dip ever, but we obviously are making money now. As soon as we stop doing that, we have a little bit of what we call a gap years here. This is right at 75. That's when their RMDs would start. That's whenever they're forced distributions out of their tax deferred accounts. And remember, over, I guess, 80% of their savings is tax deferred. So that's where all those distributions have to be coming out, and their tax rate starts increasing over time. Right here, we've got Jim passing away. So this is the widow's tax trap, or that tax jump for Debbie that she's going to face if she outlives him. And let's see if there's any reason to do Roth conversions here. I've got a feeling it's not a super huge benefit, but let's see here. So let's see, none. So we're not filling up anything yet. So right here is kind of when we'd want to do them, and preferably before we turn on Social Security. You can see the tax rate actually decrease here once they get to 67, because Social Security is not taxed the same way as normal income. So until then, this little 3-year period, that's whenever they would be taking all their money from their tax deferred account, their IRAs. And once they get to this point, a portion of their income need would be coming from their Social Security at 67. That's how the system is set to start pulling that. And because of that, their tax rate overall is going to be going down because they have to pull less money from their IRAs because a portion's covered by Social Security, and Social Security has a more favorable tax treatment because at a most, 85% of their Social Security income would ever be taxable. So that's why you see a slight decrease there. Now, if we started doing Roth conversions above this, so we'd have to go to the 22% bracket to even get to where we could do a conversion at all. Let's flip this to 22. We're gonna hit refresh. Okay, so there could be some benefit here on Roth conversions. This might be something to look at as we go through this together with them, is how can we meet your spending needs every single month, but also is there a benefit to doing a Roth conversion? Because when we withdraw money, we're taking money from the tax deferred source for income anyway, but we're also having to do a Roth conversion on top of that, which means this blue is how much they need for spending, and then the green is how much they would need to do in a conversion. So if you look at the details of that, their conversion amounts based on these projections here, withdrawal and conversion, right? So they've got to take money out to meet their spending needs. They have some in a taxable account, or these are the account balances. So we're taking from the tax deferred first, right? So you see the tax deferred balance go down over time because we're doing Roth conversions. They're tax-free, being Roth is increasing over time because this money's going into the Roth IRAs, and this is how much they're spending out of their tax deferred accounts. So even with spending out of their tax deferred accounts and still doing a small Roth conversion every single year to fill up that 22% bracket, there is some benefit, almost $1 million of lifetime tax savings, but also lifetime growth in a tax-free capacity. And right now we've got these different Roth IRAs or all their assets going to the next generation, their kids, at 15%. If we increase this to, let's say, 20%, let's say they have kids that are making some money, so that's about the same. Let's see what happens if we bump it to 24% bracket. It might or might not be helpful. It goes down. It doesn't help as much because that's too high of a tax rate to fill that all the way up. Now, here's what I'll say on Roth conversions really quickly is right now markets are elevated, at least at the time of this recording. If they start to go down or decline, it might make sense to go above that 22% just a little bit with some of the Roth conversion, because you'd be converting at a low spot, which means you're converting the same amount of shares, but the price of those shares is declined, which means your taxes are based on the dollar amount, not the share amount. So there's a bit of an advantage there to do Roth conversions after the account in the IRA has lost value. So you convert it all over to the Roth and let it recover cover in the Roth, which means that would be tax-free growth happening there. If everything is normal, we would probably just stick to the 22% bracket on the Roth conversions, just fill that up regardless of how much it is. Again, I think you saw there, it's just $50,000 year one of doing them, not next year, right? Because he would still be working in this situation, or she would now. And then we have some smaller Roth conversions, but still that adds up to a fairly large benefit over the rest of their lives if he makes it to 85 and she goes to 95, because all of this on the back end, especially once he passes away at 85 is what this is assuming, she doesn't have to pay taxes on all of the income that she would have to take out as an RMD after he's passed away. And the key there is you can see the brackets drop down. That's going from a married filing jointly to a single tax filer. So the brackets get compressed, but she still would have the same amount of RMDs if she had all of that money in a tax deferred source. So that's one of the big advantages, in my opinion, of doing Roth conversions, is not so much that you get tax-free income in retirement. It's really to help your spouse not have to pay as much tax on the back end as a single tax filer once they're of RMD age and there's only one spouse left alive, meaning they're paying taxes as a single tax filer. So that's the biggest benefit, in my opinion, is having lower RMDs at a lower tax rate once you do get there if you're single at that point. So what I've got for them is this, is as we evaluate this, Roth conversions are something we need to start looking at. But in terms of them overall, I would say, hey, can one of us work another year? Is that possible? The second thing is can we decrease our spending just a touch in retirement? And what if we downsize the house, go from $1 million to $600,000? You can find a really nice house for $600,000, put a $200,000 mortgage on it, or we can even evaluate paying that off early, either, in the first couple of years of retirement. Instead of doing Roth conversions, we can evaluate, hey, what if we paid that house off now instead of a Roth conversion, which means you got to pull that out of the tax deferred IRA in order to do that. And so we decrease our overall balances in our retirement savings, but now we have no debt outside of the cars, which the cars would be paid off around 67, which means we'd have no debt at that point. Social Security's coming in. Minimal distributions are needed then out of the IRAs, depending on how much they're spending. Those are the different considerations I think that they've got to think about here and evaluate for themselves. It's going to be some hard decisions, I think, because they just kind of increased their lifestyle. They just bought this house. They just bought the cars, but now they're having to pull back on that just a little bit because they see the writing on the wall of, hey, retirement is not possible whenever we're spending this much money every single month. So they've got to pick what's more important, the lifestyle or being able to retire and be free and go do what they want to do and enjoy life while they have the chance to. So as I've gone through this, hopefully this has been helpful for you as you evaluate a few different things around your retirement. But the main takeaway I have for you is this: don't think you have to have a certain amount of money for retirement. Everything is based on your situation. Really, what it comes down to is your spending. If you spend too much money, it's not going to matter how much you have because your spending is going to outpace your dollar amounts. That's what it is. It's lifestyle creep. So if you can avoid that, that's the biggest thing. I have people that work with me that retire with $500,000, $600,000, $800,000, way less than $1 million all the time. And always comes down to, well, how much do you spend and how much is your fixed income going to be, whether it be from a small pension or Social Security or something like that. So don't think you have to have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million like everyone is saying nowadays. Just know you can have a lot less than that. And it really boils down to how much you spend on a monthly basis. And if you can make those two things work out on paper, you can have a really great retirement. So thanks for tuning into this video. I hope it was helpful. We'll see you in the next one.